Okay. Hello, everybody. This is Rojo Chief Clothing, and I have Dr. Fatou on, and we're going to talk about DNA, the differences between Paleo Indian DNA and African DNA. And the first thing that I'm going to show you all is a video that I did on my other channel about 7 years ago, and that was prior to me knowing what I know now. And it was talking about DNA. It was talking about the single nucleotide polymorphisms, and it was talking about how the shorter single nucleotide polymorphisms, how when they're short, the shortest ones indicate the ancestry that you had in your body the longest versus ancestors that you had recently had inherited. So that's what they had mentioned in the article that's in the video. And they were saying that allegedly the people that they're calling, African Americans, which are the Aborigines, that they have African ancestry, but that their African ancestry or alleged African ancestry is the longest SMP that they have in their body because it's supposed to be the more recent ancestry, whereas the next longest SMP that they have in their body is from European ancestry, and that the shortest SMP is from the American Indians. Um, let me know if you can see playing. Let's see, share. Okay, I'm back. Let's see if I can play it now. Let's see here.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Oh, let's see here. Share. Hmm. Okay. Let's see what happened. Let's see what's gonna happen now. All right. What's up in the video? Okay, I hear you. I hear you. Can you hear me? It said no visual or no audio. That's the last thing I see on here. Okay. Can you hear me?
I can
Let's
hear
see.
you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Wait a minute. Trying to,
Would a defect on my end affect you?
hmm.
Can you hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Hey, how you doing?
Are you able to hear me?
All right, Dr. Fatou.
Yes, you hear me?
I can hear you now. Okay, go ahead. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay,
Go ahead. I had to restart this thing so many times. It's ridiculous. Okay, go ahead.
let me ask you a question. If I had some sort of issues, would that affect you with playing video?
Um, I don't think so. I think it's more so on my with StreamYard and my internet because I have T-Mobile home internet service, so I don't know what the heck, like this it froze. I try to play the video and all this stuff, and one of the things that I was trying to say was is that I had did some videos, a series of videos on my other channel called Henry Louis Cases of Fraud, My DNA Results, right? And it's an
Right,
article that I have under the part one that is a link that I found, and they were talking about DNA, and it was saying that the shortest single nucleotide polymorphism is the oldest DNA that you have in your body, and that the
mhm,
longer strands of DNA are the more recent ancestry. Well, okay, the ancestry that they're claiming is supposed to be African is the longest SMP that we allegedly have inherited, right? And then they were saying the one that's the second longest is supposed to be from European ancestry, and that the shortest SMP, according to the article, is the what they want to call Native American, since they don't want to use the term American Indian. And the article was about people that was from the Caribbean, from Puerto Rico, in particular, is who they were talking about. And I also had some clips from the Hodge twins of them talking about how their DNA results were, and as well. But I would like to talk to you first about what you discovered, as far as the differences that you've seen between our DNA, Paleo Indian DNA, and African DNA.
right. There are a few differences, and I learned a lot from Tyrone Lewis Cannon. A lot of your listening audience, they're familiar with him with Genetic Trust and Law Group on Facebook. He's taught me a lot about DNA and genetics, and then of course I look at a lot of samples myself. So just by looking at different samples, people share their samples with me, and I upload their raw data to different programs. You also get to see. Um, there is a difference, and no one has really defined our DNA. as being within its own category. That's also a big problem when it comes to dealing with population genetics. So it gets a little tricky because it has some element of truth, but it gets tricky in how they choose to label our DNA. Okay, because
Mhm.
no one is saying that our DNA uh, has its own category uh, exclusive to the Americas. And of course, there
Mhm.
was crossing with Africans across the Atlantic, different periods of times. No one is categorizing our DNA. What they're doing is they're using ancestral informative markers, which we share in common with Africans, just like Asians and Native Americans, who are the Asiatic descendants who came into the
Mhm.
Americas. That's why they resemble Asians. They
Mhm.
share certain markers, and often on these DNA tests, they can't always distinguish one from the other.
Mhm.
Sometimes they can, and sometimes there's some cross reactivity. Okay. And so it's the same thing with us. So all of our DNA is being lumped and it's being categorized as African. Now,
Mhm.
there's different features that would suggest that our DNA, in fact, is a category. Um, it's not always very clear cut. I'm going to tell you that right now
Mhm.
because our people in the Americas, we're not monolithic. Our
Mhm.
DNA has its variations from region to regions of the Americas. Uh,
Mhm.
and I even see some slight differences when I look at samples of our people right here in North America, our people who come from, let's say, the Mississippi Basin versus our people that tend to come from the Atlantic states like Virginia, there's some slight differences, not a lot, but there's some slight differences. And then, of course, there's some differences between our brethren in the Caribbean, and there's some differences between our people from South America. And I'm talking about the people that we will call, let's say, Afro Colombians and stuff like that. I have seen some of their DNA as well. Okay,
Mhm.
so one thing I can tell you, um, I will say now, I don't have a PhD in genetics. I need to make sure that your listening audience understands that. But I have looked at a
Mhm.
lot of samples. I have learned some things from uh, uh, Tyrone Lewis Cannon, and I have noticed patterns. I will tell you that there is uh, definite evidence, indirect evidence, when you look at DNA, that
Mhm.
there is a, I'm going to use this in quotes, African type of DNA that they're categorizing as African that
Mhm.
uh, is exclusive to us, but we're not
Mhm.
being given that label. Okay. I don't
Mhm.
know if I'm able to upload any of the pics that I've sent you. Are you?
I'll have to go to. Let's see here. I have to go on Facebook Messenger and see if I could share. Let's see here. Let me go to maybe open up another page and go back to there.
Mhm. Because
I have to
the
type.
pics that I sent you will very much illustrate to your listening
Mhm.
audience what I'm going to show, that in fact they
Okay.
are not
I'm about to.
categorizing.
Okay. Trying to. It's trying to load right now. Let's see if I can find it. And plus, I remember you said something about there's that we have some sort of feature when it comes to our teeth
Yes,
that shows. Hmm.
yes. We when you look at, and I'm gonna use this word blacks, and I use this in quotes. I know that word is offensive to many people because of the deeper meaning behind it, but for just the purposes of my conversation, when I look at black people from
Hmm.
the Americas, be it from the Caribbean
Hmm.
or North America, a good portion of
Hmm.
us have something called tooth shoveling. I believe I actually saw it when you were speaking. You, it's the incisors, the
Oh.
top teeth. Yeah, you look like you have it. It's called shoveling. That's the inner portion of the teeth have a scoop-like appearance, and there's different degrees of shoveling. That's a
Oh.
that's called dental anthropology, the studying and the identification of a population via their dentition. And when you study dental anthropology, they will tell you that is a characteristic of Native Americans. You know, we're not Native Americans, but interesting enough, we as indigenous Americans,
Hmm.
mislabeled Afro Americans and Afro Caribbeans, we still hold on to the teeth findings that are documented in these journals.
Hmm.
Okay, that's supposed to be characteristic of Native Americans, and many of us also have something called uh, oral tori, which are bony projections that are found in the palate, which is the roof of the mouth, or it can be
Hmm.
found in the bottom of the jaw, which we call submandibular tori. And personally, I have rarely seen submandibular tori in Caribbeans, but I have seen submandibular tori in North American Aborigines for some
Hmm.
reason. Um, but we will have the both populations will have the palatal. Uh, People from the Caribbean will have round tori, and some of us will have round tori. I've seen some people who are Gullah Geechee with the round
Hmm.
ones. As many of you know, they have a lot of ancestry that also came out of the Caribbean. But I've seen people from Virginia, North Carolina with long shaped ones. But nevertheless, these are oral tori. It tends to be more common in women and men. But the tooth shovel in both sexes have it equally, and it's very prevalent among all of us.
Hmm. Okay. All right. I'm about to see if I can share this page real quick. Let's see here. Interesting. Okay.
Right.
Let's see here. Hmm. Okay. Can you see the pictures?
So, okay, yes.
'Cause I'm trying to get to the first. I'm trying to see like the first picture I think that you sent me. I'm trying to get to that one.
Yeah, that's my DNA.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Oh.
Oh no,
All right.
that's my cousin's right there. Okay, so
Okay. This is.
one difference that I one difference that exists between our DNA, okay, and African
Mhm.
DNA. And now what I'm saying is exclusive to people from North America, okay? Because Tyrone did his own study and found that in his study, 100% of North American, so called African American participants
Mhm.
had either Native American and Southeast Asian markers. Okay.
Mhm.
And when you include the Southeast Asian, when you include the Native American, it was over 95%. When you
Mm.
include the Southeast Asian, it was 100%. And the reason why this is very important, because the Southeast Asian markers are representative of Austronesians, who were the earliest seafarers.
Mm.
Okay. And
Mhm.
that's significant because the fact that in his study, 100% of us had this. And I can tell you, looking at tons and tons of samples myself,
Mhm.
I never ever find a person from North America who has roots from North America without
Mhm.
having Southeast Asian markers. They may or may not have tiny Native American markers, but none of us
Mhm.
escape Southeast Asian markers. And I would say most of us have tiny Native American markers in addition. And the reason why
Mhm.
that's very important, because we had to be here to greet those seafarers.
Mhm.
Now, for their DNA markers to be so ever present among all of us, or most of us, based on what we are seeing, is that there was a lot of intermixing, and
Mhm.
it happened so extensively that those markers became embedded into our DNA. And
Mhm.
he was teaching me that that process is called genetic integration. And that's basically two populations who are genetically different
Mhm.
and mixed over time extensively, that their markers now have become embedded into ours. So part of our genetic characteristic is to literally have tiny Southeast Asian markers.
Mhm.
Now, that is exclusive to North American Aborigines. And the reason why I have to say that, it's not that I don't see people from the Caribbean with it, it's
Mhm.
just that all the people from the Caribbean do not have that. And it just makes sense because evidently, when the Austronesians came, evidently they came in through North America or primarily hit maybe the Pacific coast of North America. And that is how we mixed with them, or they came from the side of the Pacific into, Mexico, or through the Pacific side. The Caribbean, if you just look at the geography, the Americas barricade them off. So those
Mhm.
markers would go down by the time you hit the Caribbean. And yes, they have origins out of South America, but they are just further out west. So
Mhm.
that geographically makes sense. And yes, some of them have it. Don't get me wrong, I do see it, but all of them don't have it. But nevertheless, it does not mean they are not indigenous.
Mhm. Right. Exactly.
But I cannot,
Mhm.
I have to be very honest. The North American Aborigines have the strongest genetic argument at this point to argue in defense of having DNA that points to being here from ancient times. We do have more evidence to point to that because of the Austronesian markers.
Mhm. Okay. And that makes a lot of sense. I want to talk about this photograph right here you sent me. It
Right,
says it says West African. It says 62.7%. It says Nigerian 25.4, Ghanaian, Liberian, or Sierra Leone 18.7, Senegambian, and I don't know how to pronounce the other word. Guyanan, I believe it is. Guyanan 5.2,
yeah,
and it
not
says broadly West African
right,
13.4, Congolese and Southern East African 14.4,
right,
Patagonian 9.5, Southern East African 1.7, broadly Congolese, and Southern East Africa 3.2%.
right.
And you said this is your cousin?
Yeah, this is my cousin.
Okay, is he um African full is he completely African or is he like part American Aborigine as well?
No, this is my cousin from my mom's side. She's complete. Now, if you go down, if you show another picture,
Okay.
that's only part of her ancestry. I'm going to show you what the hallmark that she. You got to go down. Okay,
Okay.
we're gonna keep going. You see that?
Mhm.
That's Southeast Asian.
Yep. I'm about to click on it right now so I could share it. Trying to blow this image up for you all. Okay. It says East Asian and Native American 1.4, and it says Chinese and Southeast Asian 1.3, Indonesian, Thai, I don't know, Khmer and Manama 1.1, Filipino, Austronesian
Right.
0.2.
All that Southeast Asian. That's all Austronesian DNA, and that's all that I'm demonstrating.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. No,
Mhm.
she's American all the way.
Mhm.
Now you can go to my DNA, and I'm going to show you something because I'm 50% continental African.
Okay. Let's see here. Mhm. Mhm.
Now stop right there.
Oh,
Go
okay.
go up.
Okay.
There's
Right here.
something there's something that 23andMe has employed called scientific detail. I've explained this before in other videos or interviews. Basically, what uh, many of your listening audience doesn't understand, DNA is a growing or advancing science just like anything else.
Mm.
So they've employed something called STR, short tandem repeats. You see that right there? It says Ghana, high likely match.
Uh-huh. I
That's
see.
mine. That's
Mm.
mine. That's
Okay.
accurate. I'm
Mhm.
50%. And they picked that up. Okay. So,
Mhm.
our people can't keep walking around saying that this is fake.
Right.
This is not fake. They may choose to mislabel your DNA, but it's
Mhm.
not fake. All
Mhm.
right. So I'm pointing that out for a reason. Okay. Now you can go down.
Okay, hold on for a second. Hold on for a second. Hold on for 1 minute. Hold on, y'all. Okay, I'm back.
Mhm.
Okay, what was you saying?
I was saying that the DNA picked up that a good portion of my genetics go back to Ghana because that's based on short tandem repeats. Okay, because that means they have the DNA sequencing from Ghana, and I match to it.
Okay, I see. See there, 67.9%, and that makes a lot of sense. Mhm.
Okay,
And it's very recent ancestry because of your father.
That's right. It,
Hmm.
right up, right up.
Okay.
Okay, you can stroll down.
Okay. Hold on. Let's see if okay. Now, do you want me to go to the next picture?
I wanted to demonstrate the process of introgression. So I wanted to show you that even though 50% of my genetics comes from Africa, I didn't even escape the Southeast Asian markers.
Okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You see that? Stop it right there.
Right here. Oh,
Go up a little.
go up a little.
Yeah, just a little. See that? Go up a
Mm-hmm.
little more. You see that? See how they identified Ghana? They
Mm-hmm.
picked that up right away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. You
Yeah.
can go down a little.
Okay. Okay. I
All
see.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, this is from my mother. Even I didn't escape. And the point that I'm trying to make is
Mm-hmm.
that according to 23andMe, if you have an ancestor who doesn't belong to your main group, so let's say we're black, okay, I say that in quotes, and you have a Chinese ancestor, a full-blooded Chinese ancestor, and
Mm-hmm.
your ancestor passed 6 generations. They're saying if they're within 6 generations, with their techniques, they are at least able to pick up ancestress or ancestor going back 6 generations. All right. If it goes
Okay.
beyond that, they may not be able to pick it up. It doesn't mean they weren't there, but it would their techniques wouldn't pick up that DNA. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that these markers show in just about all of us from North America, and
Mm-hmm.
even 50% of my DNA is from somewhere else, and still I show it. That demonstrates what Tyrone is teaching, that those markers have become so embedded into
Mm-hmm.
our DNA from ancient mixing,
Mm-hmm.
from them coming here and mixing in with the population that they found here,
Mm-hmm.
that it wasn't easily washed away with my father coming from somewhere else with a whole different ancestral composition.
Mm. That's heavy. Yeah. That's really deep when you think about it. Yeah,
Because
because it's happening so long, it happens so much, and see, and that's what I was talking about with one of my videos that I posted on my channel. I was talking about that there you can see like the evidence in our facial structure that the mixture between us and the people that they want to call, mongoloid. That you can see the evidence of that of the interbreeding between us and them. You know,
that's with some of our people, yes.
some of us, yeah.
Well,
Like I
some,
know, like it's because I know, like it's strong, like with me and my sisters.
right. I have
Yeah,
relatives, yes. But
yeah.
that gets tricky because I've seen DNA results of people that look like Wesley Snipes and they still have the same type of markers.
Yeah, they do.
You and I have an uncle uh, who has less of these markers than me, and he's my mother's brother
Hmm.
because these are all random. You understand?
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. Because they recombine DNA. They say it recombines over generations. So certain things you inherited and some things you won't. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's see if I can share. I want to show you all um my Instagram
I want to.
pictures. I gotta
Okay.
go down to it.
And I was going to show you something. I was going to show you. I shared with you another one of my relatives and a match that came up to England.
Hmm.
And the reason why I wanted
Okay.
to show that because if they could pick that up, why aren't any of our people matching to any of these African countries? But I match. See,
Hmm. And see, and that's another thing too that I find to be very strange. You know, that they're saying that we have all of this African ancestry, but yet I noticed on Ancestry DNA they didn't match me up with any African people as my cousins, but instead they matched me up with other so-called African Americans and also Latin people from Mexico and the Dominican Republic and also Puerto Rico.
yep, that's right.
Let's see if I can find that picture. I have to go kind of far down in this Instagram. There's some really old posts that I made on there. Okay, let's see if I can find it. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can share this page with you all. Remove this one for right now. Let's see, page. Okay, I'm going to click on this one where it says a history of slavery and genocide is hidden in modern DNA. We'll click on that. I want to see if you all see that? It should be added to the stream. Okay, I think you can see it. It says a history of slavery and genocide is hidden in modern DNA. Then I had the link to the photograph, to the article. And then this is a video that I did on my other channel. It's propaganda and lies about African American DNA. Let's see here. I'll click out of this one. I'm going to go down and I'm going to show you something that I thought was interesting. Let's see here. Okay, so remember I was showing you, Dr. Fatou, that I took my raw file DNA from Ancestry.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I found it interesting because it said Anatolian farmer, Baltic hunter and gatherer, Middle Eastern herder, East
Mm-hmm.
Asian farmer,
Mm-hmm.
and then it says South American hunter and gatherer,
Mm-hmm.
1.55. I said, I said, okay. And then it said South Asian hunter gatherer. There was nothing there for North Eurasian hunter gatherer. Then I have East African pastoralists. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have anything for oceanic hunter gatherer people, but I did have Mediterranean farmer 7%, and the pygmy hunter gatherer 4.6%,
Mm-hmm.
according to JIP, right?
Right.
Now the thing is about the South American hunter gatherer that matches up with what I found at JED Match.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm going to show you the audience. Okay. Now, as you see right here, it says you see that it has like a check here, like three different check marks in the Mexico region, and then you see like about three check marks in South America,
Right.
and then So this one said the Pima in Mexico. Let's see what the other one said. I gotta click out of it to find it. And I think I had one that said the Mixi tribe, and
Mixed
then it was another one that said,
Miwok.
yeah, I think it was the Mixi tribe.
Miwok is common.
Let's, let's see, was it in here? I think I had it on here. It was like a slide. There it is. Okay, so then they had right here. They said Mayan in Mexico. Then they have the Mixi in Mexico. Then it was the Pia Poco in Colombia,
Hmm.
which we know South America. And then it was another one, but I didn't. I guess I didn't add that one. But it was in Bolivia that I had some alleged matches there as well. So then when I think about it, I'm like, well, okay. So if I have this, South American hunter gatherer DNA, then yeah, that would match up with DNA samples that's coming from Colombia, and it's coming from also Bolivia. And so my theory is, I'm thinking, okay, if that's the case, then that means that my ancestors at some point that they had migrated from South America, went into Mexico, was there for a while, and then migrated from Mexico on up to the southeastern United States. In my mind,
Hmm.
that's how I rationalize it.
Right. People were migrating all over. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not just the Native Americans. You will also find
Mm-hmm.
we have uh, Neolithic European markers, and they were brown people. This is before the Pale European came
Mm-hmm.
into existence. We have their markers as well. So
Mm-hmm.
especially, I was just looking at the DNA of Jamaican man, and I uploaded his raw data. Now, when you look at the ancestry, now this is what happens for some of our people in the Caribbean. They may or may not show Austronesian markers, but when you do the finer details,
Mm-hmm.
studies of their DNA, you will also see evidence. You may not see always evidence directly of a very ancient presence, but
Mm-hmm.
you can conclude they had a pre-Columbian presence that much. For example, this DNA of this Jamaican man, I was looking at his DNA and looking at his secondary populations on GEDmatch. This is why people need to become comfortable using GEDmatch. I was looking at the secondary populations while his 23andMe only speaks of British and Irish DNA, maybe around 10%. When you look at his secondary population is literally all out of Southern Europe, Valencia, Andalusia, Spain,
Mm-hmm.
literally all Southern European, South Italy, Sicily, Sardinia. They
Mm-hmm.
even had Lumbee. Now, this is very important because they use Lumbee not necessarily, uh, that's a modern day, they may not want to hear this, but they really are a modern day tribe. It's not that they are ancient, but what they represent is a combination of descendants of Algonquian, Siouan, and Iroquoian tribes, and these individuals petitioned the state
Okay.
of North Carolina, and they have now state recognition. Um,
Mm.
Nothing wrong with that, but you will find that they are popping up as our secondary population. So one
Mm.
can conclude that if you see Lumbee as your secondary population, you can say, well, at least I know that here's the genetic proof that I descend from the Algonquian, Iroquoian, and Siouan tribes from the eastern corridor of the Southeast of the
Mhm.
United States. You can't say that. You know you come from those collections of tribes. Well, when you look at this gentleman's Jed match, and he's from Jamaica, okay,
Mhm.
born
Mhm.
and bred, you will see all this Southern European. Then you will see Lumbee, Puerto
Mhm.
Rico, Miwok. And Miwok is a California tribe of Native Americans who are very much related to the tribes in Mexico. And
Okay.
what that shows you is uh, the fact that he's showing these secondary markers. Number
Mhm.
one, let's talk about the European. The secondary population that he's showing is coming out of the Iberian Peninsula. Remember, the Moors were expelled out of
Mhm.
the Iberian Peninsula in the 1400s. So
Mhm.
there, his ancestors had to be there
Mhm.
to mix with those people. Okay,
Mhm.
so there, right there, you could debunk any 16, 1700 bringing in of Africans, right? Because
Mhm.
what is he doing with DNA from those Moorish areas? And
Mhm.
I'm telling you, it's predominant. Then
Right.
let's take a look at Lumbee. Oh,
Mhm.
well, I thought that all his so called black ancestors were Africans from West Africa. What is
Mhm.
he doing with Lumbee DNA as his
Right.
secondary population?
Right.
Well,
That
that
doesn't
goes
make
along
sense.
with the history that they took a lot of our, primarily the men, they took the men during
Mhm.
the wars from the eastern part of the United States and they sent them to the Caribbean.
Yep. That's
That's
true.
why they're showing Lumbee. Then you also see Miwok. Well, Miwok is a prototype of a Native American tribe. Is a Native American tribe genetically similar to the native tribes in Mexico. What that shows is similar to the uh, DNA that we're showing, Native American DNA that we're showing for those of us in North America. So what he's showing is the genetic uh, link to Mexico. Okay,
Mhm.
and that's what I'm talking about. So he may not have the Austronesian markers sitting out on
Right.
20me, but when you do uh, deeper studies, when you
Mhm.
download his raw data, and we should be all become comfortable doing that,
Right.
look what you're seeing. So you can conclude that his ancestors definitely were in the Americas. And it had nothing to do with a slave trade. They were here long before there was any Columbus. Okay, he has ancestors of expelled Moors.
Mhm.
He has the DNA of Mexicans, and he has the DNA of indigenous tribes from the southeast part of the United States.
Mhm.
So the history is showing up in DNA.
That is right. Yes, it is. Yep. It's telling right. It's telling the story.
It's telling a story.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now, you will also see, now these are just consistent patterns, but you will also find that depending on what uh, studies that you're doing, you will find that you tend to see some Northwest African,
Mhm.
North African with some of our people as well. Some of our people have it more than others. It's just a personal observation. I've noticed those of us from the Atlantic coast, as
Mhm.
opposed to the Mississippi Basin, we tend to sometimes show more Iberian DNA.
Mhm.
Those
Okay.
in terms of higher percentages. But I mean, if you want to start talking about what I see consistently, I
Mhm.
will say that definitely our people who have ancestry on this side of the hemisphere, we are showing these markers linked to native Mexicans or Austronesians. And like I said, it differs from region to region. Now, I sent you a pic. Um, if you scroll up, it's from My True Ancestry, which is like a third party archaeogenetic site where people upload their Jed match, and I would like to show your audience something because when
Okay,
I
so you want me to go down? You want me to go click the arrow down?
yeah, yeah, you have to go down a little bit.
Okay. All
I
right.
think that's it. That's it. There you go. Stop right there.
All right.
Okay. Now, just scroll up a little, just a little, because I want them to see the heading.
All right. Oh, let me see. Yeah.
Modern population. Okay. That's my
Hmm.
mother's DNA that I uploaded to a third party site called My True Ancestry. Okay. And
Okay.
that's, you know,
Yep. I'm waiting for it to come. Okay. Can you see it?
okay. Yes, I can. That's an
Okay.
archaeogenetic group where they have the DNA of ancient burial sites all over the planet, and using different techniques they extract that DNA, and we upload our DNA, and you look for different matches. Okay.
Hmm.
Um, when I said that they did not categorize our DNA as being a unique DNA that is similar to Africans but
Hmm.
not the same, this is an example of what I'm talking about. This is my mom's
Hmm.
DNA. My mother is from North Carolina. Both of her parents are from
Okay.
North Carolina.
Hmm.
And this is an example of what I'm talking about. These are her closest genetic modern populations. Okay?
Hmm.
Notice what's at number one.
The lumby. The limba. I mean, the limba.
That's right, the Lemba. The Lemba are from Southeast Africa. They've been in the news in recent years because they are African Jews. They have ancestry that
Okay.
migrated out of Yemen. And there's been studies with regard to that. But that's not my focus. My focus is how is it that, on one hand, we're being told that our ancestors come from West Africa,
Hmm.
but that the closest population to my mom is a Lemba from Southeast Africa, and that tends to show up for majority of us.
Hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
now I want you to pay attention to those numbers in the parentheses. You see that number 17?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay, if you can scroll down,
Hmm.
that's the marker for population distance. That's 17.
Okay.
Or you
All
can go to
right.
this picture.
Okay. I trying to, yeah, trying to click out of this. Hold on for a second. All this stuff is trying to pop up. All right.
Okay, what do these numbers mean?
Okay.
All
Let
right.
me let me click it so that try to blow it up.
Okay, so this is population distance. How close are these populations to you? As you can see, 5 means you are close. 10 means I can't read that there. 10
It's a
means you
10 you could fit into this population.
right.
And hmm
15 means you are related, right?
right.
Okay, my mother was 17.
Hmm.
That means she's not even close, but that's her closest. You see the point I
Yeah.
make?
Hmm.
So evidently, she comes from some sort of group that is similar, but that they have not defined. But they're saying her closest population is a Southeast African group called the Lemba. And it's not even close. It's 17.
17, right. Hmm. Yeah, because
You
it's
know,
that's like pretty far. Because they said 15 means that it's a related population,
that's
and
right.
that's
Because
further away. Yeah.
if I
Hmm.
show you Nigerians and including myself that participated, I don't think I was Russian. I didn't send you a pic of my closest population. My closest population is like Yoruba and Mandinka, and my numbers are 3. My
Hmm.
mom is 17, and her closest population is a group in Southeast Africa. I thought her ancestors came from West
West
Africa.
Africa, right? Right. So that totally debunks that, right?
That
Because a whole different region in Africa completely.
That's right. And if you go to another pic, I can show you it's not just this group. That
Mm.
finding is consistent when you go to GEDmatch. I'm gonna show you. You go to GEDmatch too. If you go to some other pics, I'll stop you
Okay,
when you
hold on
do.
for a second. Hold on for a second. I have to do something real fast. Hold on for a minute.
No problem.
Okay. Okay, I'm back. What was you saying?
So what I was saying was this observation in this particular third party group, my true ancestry. This
Hmm.
is also consistent when you go to GEDmatch. I'm gonna show you GEDmatch. Okay,
Hmm.
we're going
Okay.
to see the same thing. The same thing. We will see the contradiction. So these companies like 23andMe.
So this
Okay,
one right here.
no, no, no. I'm gonna show you. Scroll down.
Okay.
23andMe and Ancestry and all of them. They'll tell you, hey, it's Nigerian, Nigerian.
Mm.
You read in the books, Nigerian and West Africa and Nigeria. Okay, stop right there. Go up. Oh no, no, no. What I was showing.
No,
Scroll down.
this way
No, go the other
or
way.
the other way. Okay. Okay. Mm.
Stop right there.
Right here.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me
So
blow it
this
up.
is so this is an example of what I'm talking about. Okay. How
Hmm.
is this person? I believe this is the Jamaican man's DNA. Look at
Hmm.
his look at his first population distance.
It said okay 8 for the limber.
But the
And,
point is, what does it
mhm.
do in even Lemba?
Right. And it is Southeast Africa, right? It
Right.
doesn't
That's
make
his
any sense.
first population.
Mm.
Something is wrong.
Yeah.
See, my whole point to demonstrate is that you can see when it comes to who we are, somebody is not defining our major ancestral component.
Hmm.
What is it going to be? Is it going to be Lemba or is it going to be some West Africans?
Mm. Right. That's confusing. It's a contradiction.
It's a contradiction. But
Mm-hmm.
what you can see is the pattern. You can see that for many of us, the closest genetic population to Africa that we have
Mhm.
is the lumber.
Right. Right.
Then, no,
I see.
we're not limber. But what they're saying is, hey, we're
Mm,
gonna make you Africans regardless,
mm,
because that's what we're gonna make you. And when we look at the genetic distances, you are closest to these people. It doesn't mean you're from these people, but this
mm,
is closest to you're the closest to this people because
mm,
they refuse to acknowledge that you have your own DNA, which deserves its own category.
mhm,
And because nobody is doing that,
mhm,
and you are being forced to fit into the African category,
mhm.
that's why our stuff is all over the place. They're telling you
Right.
on one hand you're from West Africa, and they
Right.
give you those results when you open up those DNA tests, or you look at the computer and you look at your test results. Oh, they will tell you that. But when you take your raw data,
Mhm.
you go to programs which are less biased,
Right. Mhm.
then you can see they're telling you, well, your closest African population is somewhere from Southeast Africa, the Lemba. And that Lemba pops up as the number one closest population for the majority of our people that do these tests. But if you're looking for them to tell you that, they're not going to tell you that, because then that's going to jump out at the average person. Well, what if they tell you lumber when you read your results, when they finally load up your results on the
Mhm.
computer, you it doesn't matter. You're going to say, "But wait a second, what are we doing coming from that area of Africa? I thought we all came from Nigeria and Ghana." So they're giving you the initial results of what you've been trained to accept. But when you take the time to download your raw data and you use these other programs, which are not perfect, by the way,
Right.
you
Mhm.
can at least see there's the contradiction.
Yes, it is.
And that's why I'm saying that clearly we have a predominant DNA which is being mislabeled African, which is not given its own category.
Mhm. Yeah. And I agree with you because I have a friend by the name of Nasir Ali, and he had an NGO at the UN. He used to have it. He doesn't have it anymore, and it was called Paleo Americans First, right? And he went to at least two meetings, and he had told the people there at those meetings on the of course on the indigenous side of things, right? He was telling them that the so-called black population here that they are Paleo Indians, and he even has a book that he talks about the anthropology and the genetic evidence of it. But he was saying that they don't. He wanted to get the results of what they found in Lucia, and he said they just would not give it to him. They refused to give him that information. So yeah, I agree with you. I totally agree with you that
Right.
they're trying to keep that information tight to their chest because they already know what the deal is. You know,
Right.
they've been new. It's just they've been playing games with our people and telling them, that they're from somewhere else, obviously, when they're not, and they're really the inhabitants of this landmass. And we know what that's about is purely economics, because this land, all of it, North America, Central, South America, and the Caribbean islands, is worth trillions of dollars because of all the different natural resources we have here when it comes to gold, diamonds, coal, um, food, the different fruits and vegetables we have here, oil, etc., etc. And I was coming across what Indian Mac was talking about. He was talking about, particularly in the United States, for instance, we know a part of a lot of these Indian treaties that there were land patents that were given to our ancestors, and our ancestors had these land patents going back, you know, to the beginning of the 18th century, like the early 1800s. They was given these land patents, and these land patents, and just by our birthright period, we have a allodial title. And it was something that he showed, and he was talking about. I think it might have been him. I think it was him, and he showed something about. No, no, it wasn't. It wasn't him. It was somebody else. Anyways, but they was talking about how there was tributary Indians that was in the state of Virginia, I believe it was, and I forgot which tribe it was. I don't know if it was the Saponi Indians or if it was like a different tribe that was in the state of Virginia. But he was talking about how in the 1800s and 1700s, right, that they were supposed to be paid a tribute, but over time, the state, or I should say, the Commonwealth of Virginia, found different ways to discredit the indigenous people and not pay them a tribute. And we know a tribute is it's a tax. And
Right.
so naturally, uh, all of us as Aborigines, these states, which are corporations, they're supposed to be paying us a tax,
Right.
from their Treasury Department. And so the deal of it is that okay, we tell these people that they came from somewhere else. We don't have to worry about them, suing us in court for what's rightfully theirs. So that's why it's imperative for us to use our genealogy and then also use DNA as a tool to come up with more evidence of us being the rightful heirs of this land
Hmm.
in order for us to be able to have a good paper trail. Because all it does, the DNA plus our genealogy, of course, all it does is it just solidifies what it is that we're saying.
Right.
You continue.
By no means would I ever tell anybody to just rely on DNA. But when you do your genealogy, which we should all continue to do, okay, and you have
Hmm.
an understanding of how to use population genetics and how the population genetics actually supports the history. That's really what it is.
Oh yeah, definitely. It does. It goes hand in hand.
Right,
It's just like I believe on Facebook you was talking about you was showing how I think her name is the American Empress, right? And she was showing like the different communities. And it's very ironic how she showed the different communities when they was talking about the PD community. And they said the PD African American community, right? And then it
right,
said Virginia Blue Ridge African American community. And then when you go into and you do deeper research, you come to find out that those are all American Indian communities that
right,
they're mislabeling on purpose on Ancestry DNA as African American. And we know African American is a misnomer that they purposely had mislabeled our people as in the late 1980s.
right,
So we see that it's definitely a political. It's not just a political agenda; it's an economic agenda. That's the reason why Ancestry DNA is doing it, and more so, that's the reason why they should have a class action lawsuit against them because we know that's a bunch of BS, and we have the evidence to prove it and to show it. But
right.
anyway, but yeah. So, is there any other pictures that you want me to show the audience?
Uh, Hold on 1 second. Let me tell you. I'm gonna go through it myself. Let's see here. There's a point. Uh, yes, I want to. If you could scroll up, just
Okay.
some of the extra features. Start right there.
Okay.
All right. You can make that larger.
Yep. I'm clicking on it to see it.
Let me see.
Okay.
Right. Um, there are other things that a lot of our people show. Okay, and
Mhm.
that would require probably another show. Uh,
Okay. Mhm.
but several people came to the Americas, and we also traveled out. All
Mhm.
right. So our tiny markers reflect that. Okay, I'm going to go to the picture. I
Okay.
hold on, just give me a second here, so I can look at it. Okay, I have it here.
Okay.
When you see North Atlantic, which is at the top, that's
Mhm.
usually where we British DNA from the British Isles, Ireland. Okay, you look at Baltic; those are the Baltic countries like Finland and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I wanted to point to the Western Mediterranean.
Mhm.
That's as you can see, that's the area like the Iberian Peninsula.
Mhm.
All right,
Right.
and also when you read about Western Mediterranean, uh, it is also a marker of early European farmers. Now,
Mm.
why is that important? Our early European farmers, if you look at the ancestral composition of the early European farmers, they were brown people.
Mhm.
Okay, they had DNA from Anatolia, South Asia. They had a lot of Natufian DNA, which were the earliest people who were so-called African type of people from the area we call Jordan, Lebanon, the Middle East, Israel.
Mhm.
So early European farmers were a derivative of those people, okay, and they were mixed with the Western hunter-gatherers. And you see Western Mediterranean, you will find that that incorporates the Iberian Peninsula and Sardinia and those areas around there. Um, and the reason why that's important is because those populations actually have more of the early European farmer DNA inside of them. That's why they're darker. If you don't read the history, one would be led to believe somehow or another Europe was pale and the people from the south are dark because the people from Africa invaded them. That's actually not true. The people from the south are darker and
Mhm.
they were invaded, so they lightened up, but they are darker because they actually have more of the original DNA of Europe, which were the early European farmers, Neolithic type Europeans. Okay,
Okay.
you will
Mhm.
notice that uh, really majority. I'm going to tell you something. Like I said, from region to region, there are differences. Believe it or not, I've actually seen 100% so-called African people from the Caribbean. I have a DNA of a friend of mine. She's an Afro-Guyanese, and her
Okay.
DNA says 100% African. Okay, which just means that in the past 6 to 8 generations, there's no evidence of mixture. But I downloaded her DNA, and that's a whole nother story because I saw evidence that she had trace markers, oceanic, very trace tiny oceanic markers, and she also had secondary population from Mexico.
Mm.
So she still had evidence of her ancestry coming out of the Americas long before there was a Columbus. Okay, but that's another story. But going back to this, what I noticed with people from North America and the majority of the people from the Caribbean, we will have that Western Mediterranean. Okay, and
Mhm.
we have to also understand that Neolithic Europeans were coming to North America and the Caribbean from ancient times, okay, and we were intermixing back and forth with them. We were going there.
Mhm.
um, Jack Forbes wrote a book about uh, the Algonquian Indians. I forgot the name. I think is the Doctrine of Discovery. Don't quote me on the name of the book, but he talked about the Algonquian people going into Europe from ancient times and settling it. We do have the Jed Kit numbers for your listener audience that plays with Jed Match.
Mhm.
Go to the archaeo genetic section, If you look at those samples, which they now are all European samples, ancient European samples, they have the kit numbers. Play with the kit numbers, put them in. You'll see all of those people are brown. They have some South Asian DNA, even American Indian DNA. Yes, the people were going over there.
Mm-hmm.
You will find that the ancient Irish samples, which a lot of our people are matching to, by the way, almost all of us, when you play with the genetic section of GEDmatch, we are matching ancient sites in Ireland. Some
Mm-hmm.
of us match ancient sites in the Iberian Peninsula, Anatolia, which is a very ancient site. Okay, so it's one of the mother countries of brown European. So I can tell you that when you look at our DNA, we are showing these markers. You also see here uh, South Asian. Okay, many of us have tiny South Asian markers. I know some of our people have ancestry more recent because there was uh, people from India who came in as indentured servants and they were considered free people of color. But I'm saying even for those of us who do not have ancestors from India as ancestors directly as indentured servants, just about all of us show tiny South Asian markers because there were people coming from India, they came to Mexico. So there's a lot of stuff going on. Then you see Northeast Africa, that's the area of,
It's a question. It's a question by
okay,
Flamethrower, and it says, "Where is the Paleo Neolithic African though?" And then he
is
made
that,
another comment.
I don't see that category for Paleolithic. If you use certain, I've actually seen that category, Paleo Neo-African, with other
Mm-hmm.
programs, not with this particular programs. I believe this is Eurogenes 13, but I've seen that program.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know what to do with, even when they call that Neo-African. I don't know what to do with that because I'm seeing a lot of evidence that Yoruba DNA, which is found over here, which is also found in Nigeria, was
Mm-hmm.
also found over here. It didn't come with the slave trade. It was definitely pre-Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know what is Neolithic. The most ancient site on the African continent is Morocco, believe it or not. And that gets into something else. A lot of our people from North America match those sites as well. And that goes back from ancient times. And it really kind of makes sense if you just look at the map,
Mm-hmm.
because if you look at the map, you'll see there was more gene flow. I have DNA samples of so-called Afro-Latinos from South America. They're more distant matching to North Africa, but they are more close matching to sub-Saharan Africa. That just makes sense when you look at the location. It was just more gene flow from their area back and forth to the African continent. I mean, we cannot pretend there wasn't gene flow back and forth.
Right.
Of us, it
Mm-hmm.
was more than others. And I can tell you that the distinction between many of the so-called Black people from South America, even though they have their Aboriginal component as well, there
Mm-hmm.
was definitely more gene flow going back and forth with the African continent.
Mm.
With South America, compared to those of us from North America, there's more genetic distance. Okay, so I was able to demonstrate that distance more with my mother. That's not a coincidence because she's from North America. I could
Right.
have, if I showed you a sample of a friend of mine who's Afro-Colombian,
Mm-hmm.
you would not have seen that genetic distance. He is just as closely matched to the Mandinka and Yoruba population out of West Africa, just like any West African, and yet he's an Afro-Colombian. So it gets tricky. It's not always cut and dry. I think that the North Americans, based on what I've seen, show the greatest
Mm-hmm.
distance proof that there is a Paleo Indian DNA that went undefined. And I think the reason we're able to still show it genetically has to do with the fact that we have not crossed as much with
Mm-hmm.
uh, sub-Saharan Africans. But I can tell you something: we crossed more with North Africans in ancient times compared to our kin further south.
Okay, I don't know what happened. Can you see me? I'm sorry.
Okay.
I don't know what the heck happened. And it says, what it says, Morocco is Europe, North Africa. So folks did migrate into what's considered Africa from all sides, period. I agree, we are more distant. Okay. Um, I have a viewer that's saying she's asking, Shebi is asking, do you have a YouTube channel?
No.
Let's see. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Because I can hear you. I can hear you. Let's see. Okay. What was the last thing that you just said? Because I think the last thing that I heard was you was talking about the people in South America,
Oh,
and you were
what I was
saying
saying
that they are more.
was you, what I've observed, just looking at samples of different people, there was more genetic flow between the African continent and South America and the Caribbean.
Hmm.
And I'm not talking about a slave trade. Forget the slave trade. If you just look at the
Right.
currents and where it's
Hmm.
located, it makes sense.
Hmm.
So when I look at
It
their
does.
population,
Yeah.
when I look at their closest modern populations, I will notice that many of them will match quite closely in terms of population distance with populations in sub-Saharan Africa. But then when you do other studies, you can see that they have been in their areas for from ancient times because of things that I just talked about. You
Hmm.
understand? They will
Oh
have
yeah.
trace oceanic DNA and stuff like that. You know, we were not nobody was isolated from one another. You have to remember that
Right.
most of the staples that sub-Saharan Africans eat, corn, peanuts, yams, cassava, came out of the Americas. So we communicated back and forth with each other. The one of my patients is a Mali from Mali. She's a Malian of the Bambara tribe,
Hmm.
and she said griots can go back
Okay.
well over 1,000 years, and she said they're fully aware that Abu Bukhari came here.
Mm.
That is no secret to them. They know about Abu Bukhari coming here and coming here a couple of
Hmm.
times. And their griots know about that. So we were in communication, and he wasn't the first person to come here. He was probably the last that we know about. We've been communicating back and forth. But when you look at the map, you can see that it's just obviously more of a feat for West Africans and people below the Sahara to come to North America, and it's just a natural flow for them to go into the area of Mexico, the Caribbean, and South America. That's just common
Hmm.
sense if you look at the currents.
Right. Right.
But
Closer. Exactly.
if you look at North Africa and if you look at Europe, it's just a natural flow to come into North America. So it doesn't surprise me that more of us are showing European DNA and also using uh, other programs like sequencing, we're showing close, some of us from North America, quite a few of us, not all of us, quite a few of us show close genetic matches to the North Africa, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia area. We're showing that. Okay. What happens with these DNA tests, just looking at the surface results, some of us will show like zero point 0.1, zero point 0.2 North Africa, and stuff like that. What happens is that they'll show little pieces of it. But if you look and do your own independent studies without relying on them to tell you the reports and you upload it to these studies, you will see Northwest African DNA. You still hear me? Hello?
Okay. You-
Okay.
Okay. So I'm trying to see if I can share this again. If not, then I'm just going to see if I could do it on another broadcast at another date. Because for some odd reason, I don't know why they don't want. Seem like they don't want me to play this, or they give me a very hard time playing this dang on video. But hmm. But if you're available, I could just go ahead and if you're available, I can see if I can come on at a later time. Now, are you going to be available later on?
Yes, you have to just let me know the time.
Okay. I think 7 o'clock. Let's see what time is it now. It's like 3:36. I think
Hmm.
7 probably will be a good time
Okay.
in because it's just too much. I don't know what the heck is going on with this plus. My mom wants me to take her somewhere real quick, and I don't know, how long that's going to take.
But somebody here asked the question. South Asia has vegetation and fruits too. What does that have to do with anything? I'm just trying to.
I mean, yeah, you have vegetation and it, fruits everywhere. You got flora and fauna. Like yeah, the flora and fauna is different from from. They find some of that evidence of that in our um genetic code according to I think it's Muhammad Dr. Ali Muhammad Bey. I think he had mentioned that something to that effect. He talked about the flora and the fauna that they find in our genes versus other people.
Mhm.
But he did talk about the gene flow between um, the Americans, the ancient Americans, and people from Africa. He did talk about that in one of his videos that he has on
Mhm.
his channel, and I think it's called I'm trying to think of what his channel is called. I probably post it on my community page so that people can see it, see what I'm talking about though.
Right. I mean, all the evidence is that we were here uh, from
Mhm.
pre-Columbian time. Some of us came here later than others. We weren't all here at the same time. You understand?
Mm-mm.
We have
Oh
ancestors
yeah, I definitely understand because I know. Mhm.
because we have ancestors that came from different places long before they were the Europeans, but some were here before others.
Mhm. Yeah, I could see that. Just like people in South America, um, certain tribes that's in like Brazil, for instance, the Amazonian tribes. Like some of them have their DNA is similar to the people or their blood type, and plus their genetics is similar to the people that came from Australia or that live in Australia right now.
Right.
Yeah. So,
And then you have a
yeah,
large,
and plus,
and then you have a large
okay,
Yoruba. You have a large Yoruba influence in Brazil. Some people say the Yorubas came from
mhm,
there. You know, I've heard both arguments. Some say it was the
mhm,
people from
yeah,
Southwest Nigeria in ancient times that came there. You know, I think that's a discussion for another time. But the point is, it was definitely pre-Columbus. I mean, I have
right,
no doubt that that DNA is pre-Columbian
mhm,
DNA. That's not even up for debate. That's not even up for debate.
mhm, mhm. And plus when you think about it, also in the African culture, and plus over here, we also have statues made of terracotta. We have that in common.
Right.
And then I don't know if anybody remembers, but also in China, the statues of the warriors that they had over there in ancient China, they were made out of terracotta. I don't know
Yes.
if anybody remember that. It was in an area called the Forbidden City, and the Chinese government had said that those statues or that area where those terracotta statues were at was off limits. And I think that was during the time when I think the Olympics were there in China that year. I forgot which year that was.
Hmm.
And then some people also say that the had left. Some of them had left Mexico and went into Asia or settled Asia as well, in certain parts. Which I could
Hmm.
kind of see that because when you look at like Cambodia, I think it's Cambodia that they have step pyramids that are similar to the ones that's in Mexico that they say that the Mayans had built.
Hmm.
So yeah, so it's evidence. It's all around us. It's just like a puzzle. We got to put the pieces together. Okay, but okay, Dr. Fatou, I have to go.
Hmm.
I'm glad that you were able to get on my broadcast, and I hate the fact that my broadcast kept freezing as usual.
Hmm.
And I'm going to say bye to you for right now, and I'll see you. I'll talk to you later on.
All righty.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Bye bye.